Hi everybody! In March 2022, India is about to witness its biggest ever IPO in the history of the stock market. Because the country's largest insurance company, LIC, is about to give away 5% of the Indian government stake to potentially raise nearly $8 billion. LIC is an iconic company in the Indian business history that has been dominating the Indian insurance sector since 66 years now. And what blew our mind is that LIC is so huge that in 2017, while Government of India's budget was $383.93 billion, LIC's assets under management itself was $403.44 billion. The customer base of LIC is nearly 6 times the population of UK, and with more than 280 million policies, it is the 5th largest insurer in the world in terms of insurance premium collection as of 2020. And today, LIC is not just an insurer, but a nation builder, an employment generator, and a critical financial conglomerate of India. The question is, what is the story of LIC? How did it become such an important engine in India's growth history? And most importantly, as investors, what are the factors that you need to consider before you invest into LIC or similar companies? This video is brought to you by Small Case, but more on this at the end of the video. The story of LIC dates back to 1956 India. Back then, it had been just 9 years since the Britishers had left India, and India was still recovering from the scars of colonialism. After 200 years of ruling, the Brits had left behind an India that was not only economically poor, but also lacked in self-confidence and belief to prosper. In the mid-1950s, while the leaders of US and UK were executing social security schemes, Indian poverty rates had reached a maxima wherein 61% of India's population was living in poverty in 1954. On top of that, we saw multiple disease outbreaks like malaria and cholera during that time, and with our healthcare system still in its primitive stages, mortality rates in India were very high. Now at the micro level, if you look at the Indian households in 1950s, most of them only had a single earning member with multiple dependents. In some cases, there were 8 dependents in a family with just a single earning member. So if anything happened to that one earning member, the entire family was vulnerable to poverty. As a result, financial security in India was the need of the hour. Now the leaders of India knew that life insurance was very important, and there were already 245 insurance companies operating in India. But the problem with these companies was that they only catered to the urban pockets, as in they only catered to the rich people who could pay a heavy premium. And it was quite understandable because if they wanted to make a profit, that was the only way to operate. This is the reason why insurance was out of the reach of those vulnerable segments of population that actually needed it, which were the rural and lower economic strata of India. However, from the government standpoint, if these people did not get insured, they were extremely vulnerable to poverty, which in the long term was very dangerous for the economy of India. This is the reason why on 1st of September 1956, a new engine for Indian economy was born, which was known as the Life Insurance Corporation of India. LIC was formed by bringing together 245 small and big private life insurance companies, and the vision was to make sure that insurance is accessible through the length and breadth of the country regardless of the economic strata of the population. All of these companies together amounted to 27,000 employees, 50 lakh policies, assets under management of 400 crores and insurance covers of 1,000 crores. Now the question over here is, if 60% of India was living in poverty, these people were already struggling for food and water, right? Then during such a critical time, during such an adverse condition, how do you get someone to pay for something like life insurance? Well, this is where we saw the rise of LIC agents. And in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, in the absence of any digital medium back then, LIC's huge sales force traveled to every nook and corner of the country by cars, buses, trains, motorbikes, and in some cases even bullock carts to achieve LIC's vision of securing the poor families of India. And mind you, it wasn't easy at all. It took LIC not 5, not 10, not 15, but 30 long years to first educate the poor, then to instill the importance of insurance among the poor, and then to normalize spending on insurance. So basically, LIC worked very hard and spent 30 long years in creating an industry for every other insurance company that entered the Indian market. This insane persistence and sheer genius in establishing the importance of insurance to the lower economic strata of India is something that is an invaluable contribution of LIC. This is where the second phase came in, and that was in 1999 when the Government of India opened up the market for private players, and it resulted into 10 entities entering this space, which finally ended LIC's monopoly of 44 years. This is where most of these brands like HDFC and ICICI, which had a banking presence, started entering this space in a joint venture with the world's largest insurers who had a vast experience of cross-selling insurance. And like we saw in sectors like airlines and telecom, government-backed organizations like Air India and BSNL often lost their sheen when private players enter the market. And this was majorly because they could not deliver on the aspect of customer experience. And the same thing was also expected out of LIC. But you know what, guys? In case of LIC, in spite of the entry of many private players with deep pockets from insurers all across the world, LIC still stood tall as a dominating force in the Indian market. The question is, what was so special about LIC? For starters, the synonymity of LIC with insurance was something that was very, very difficult to break. When you say insurance, people by default thought about LIC. Secondly, LIC was excellent with settling claims and boasted of a claim settlement ratio of 98.31%, which meant that out of 100 people who applied for the policy and paid for it, 98 people's families received the insurance money on the death of the earning member. Now, usually, if you've ever been to a government organization, mostly the staff doesn't talk to you properly. I'm not talking about all, but mostly this does happen. And because of the bureaucracy and extreme job security, there is often a sense of lethargy that kicks in, because of which even the smallest processes often take a lot of time. But in case of LIC, that did not happen. Because LIC instilled that attribute in its employees, which was way more powerful than any protocol or incentive, and that was the sense of empathy. LIC, in spite of being so huge, invested heavily into not just training its employees, but also into making them realize that their work was no ordinary work at all. The officers were taught that with each passing day of delay, it is costing an entire family's life. If they sat on papers and procrastinated it, it meant that they were adding to the problems in the lives of those families who desperately needed the money. And this sense of empathy and bias for action was a crucial factor to ensure speedy claim resolution back when automation did not exist. Thirdly, LIC became more and more agile with time. For example, at one given point in time, LIC knew that its central reporting structure was creating a bottleneck in quick resolution. Earlier, branches were only business procurement centers, and the claim settlement process always needed approvals from the central and zonal offices. And this approval procedure used to take a lot of time, because of which the back and forth resulted into a lot of delays. This is the reason why LIC undertook a massive decentralization project to move decision making from the central office to the zonal office, then to the divisional office, and finally to the branches. This is the reason why by 2013, 41 of the 43 divisional offices were functioning almost independently. This gave a rapid boost to the claim settlement process. But all of this alone was not enough to counter competition. Back in the 1990s, when reskilling and upskilling weren't buzzwords in the industry, LIC invested heavily into continuous learning of its agents to both educate the staff and to understand the needs of the market. This feedback loop gave LIC critical insights based on which they could refine their business and launch new products. And you know what, guys? LIC was one of the first companies to introduce the concept of big money through big sale. What this means is that back then, because agents were deployed on a commission basis, their focus was on selling the smaller covers of 25 to 30 lakhs because your premiums was very less and they could easily push the sale and get the commission. As a result, even if the family gets the insurance of 25 to 30 lakhs, if their earning member drew a salary of 1 lakh rupees per month, this little cover of 25 lakhs was barely enough for just 2 years of her income. So the insurance was barely effective in covering the needs of the family in the absence of the owner. But this is where LIC deployed a method called sum assured on the basis of human value. And in this method, they said that the cover must be decided not just on the basis of the affordability, but also on the basis of the financial needs of the family. So if a person's family needs 1 lakh rupees per month for utilities and discretionary spends, the insurance cover should be decided in a manner that in the event that a person dies, his family should get this 1 lakh rupees per month or 12 lakh rupees a year for his insurance policy. So basically, an assured sum of 1.2 crores must be payable over the next 10 years. This back of the hand calculation is what decides whether the total cover should be 50 lakhs, 1 crore or 2 crore. And this was deployed by LIC to make sure that their customers get the real value of the insurance. Similarly, when agents did not sell low ticket plans, LIC designed special rural plans to cater to the needs of the rural and semi-urban part of India, by which both the agents and the customer could be benefited, And eventually, LIC started selling a large number of low-ticket policies to the economically weaker section of India. This is how, through intense effort into educating India in the past 60 years, through agility and constant learning, LIC has remained a successful government entity without succumbing to the pressure of socialism. And this brings me to another very important factor, and that is, how did LIC as an entity contribute to the economy of India? To put that straight, you see, the beauty of insurance lies in risk pooling. So at any given point of time, let's say a life insurance company collects 500 rupees premium from 10 lakh customers, that gives them a capital of 50 crores, out of which 20 to 30 crores might go into settlement and expenses, but the remaining 20 crores would still lie idle. Which is why LIC considered putting this money to task by investing into financial instruments so that they could generate better returns with this idle money. So in 1956, when LIC was formed, the government wanted to ensure that the nation's savings invested in insurance policies were directed towards building infrastructure and providing amenities to the masses in rural and urban areas. So some regulations were designed wherein LIC had to invest its money as per the following guidelines. 50% of its AUM had to be invested in government and government-backed securities, 35% of its AUM in approved investments only through public or private sector bonds or equities, and 15% could be invested on discretion. And guess what? This mobilizing of funds became such an important contribution to the Indian economy that it gave LIC the title of a nation builder itself. Why? Because out of its 25 lakh crores in assets, 65% was invested towards the social sector, especially in power, water supply, sewage and transportation. And this humongous capital laid the foundations for the infrastructure of India. In fact, even when the road ministry under Nitin Gadkari sir had announced to increase the coverage of national highways to 2 lakh kilometers in 2016, they had outlined a budget of 2.5 lakh crores, out of which 50,000 crores was to be pumped in by LIC alone. Similarly, LIC played an important role in housing schemes even before HDFC, even when housing was not even a priority for banks at all. Fun fact is that LIC was also known to be a stock market stabilizer. In 1956, when the Kashmir conflict escalated to a full-scale war between India and Pakistan, the Indian stock market had plummeted, causing many prices to be manipulated by speculators. But in just a matter of few days, under the direction of the government of India, LIC pumped in close to 5 crore rupees to provide some stability to the market. And in the recent times, LIC has been pumping close to 50,000 crores in the equity market, mainly in Nifty 50 companies. This is how LIC has not just been an insurer, but also an important pillar for the development of India. And this brings me to the most important part of the episode, and that is, considering all the rosy picture about LIC that you have now, as investors, what are the pointers of concern that you're supposed to consider while you invest in LIC or similar companies? Before we move on, I want to thank our partner Small Case for supporting our content. If you're someone who wants to strategically invest into insurance and banking firms, you can use the Small Case app to do so. Small Case is a wonderful app that creates a basket of stocks to help you make the best investments in any market condition. In this case, the most relevant Small Case are the insurance tracker and banking tracker. The best part about Small Case is that the Small Case manager himself will rebalance the stocks according to the market conditions so that you can get the best returns in any market condition. Also, even if you do not want to make any investments, you can use their news section and free blog posts to get the best and the latest market insights. So if you are someone who wants to make the most strategic investments into the stock market, download the Small Case app from the link in the description. Moving on to the pointers, there are 3 pointers that we need to keep in mind before you invest into LIC. Number 1. LIC even today is extremely dependent on agents. Now, although this is an important pillar of growth, with threats like COVID that completely curbed traveling, dependency on agents hasn't proven to be very helpful. And at the same time, during COVID, life insurance as a sector has grown rapidly. So, with the rise of internet penetration, reliability on agents alone may not be the best for the company. Secondly, you need to keep in mind that insurance is not like any other business. So, financial indicators need to be studied differently and in a much better manner. In this case, let's say today LIC collects premium worth 50 crore rupees. This 50 crore rupees cannot be considered as revenue, right? Because next year if 100 people die, this capital needs to be deployed. Similarly, you can't expense this figure to derive profit and loss statements like we do for other companies. Which is why you need to learn about something called embedded value. This is a little complex, so I'll give you a link in the description so that you can understand this concept better. And lastly, one of the best ways to understand how a company is performing would be to keep an eye on the competitors and to draw a comparison based on their strategies. In this case, I would highly recommend you to keep an eye on the innovative solutions deployed by HDFC and ICICI. And for this, you could actually use the small case news section, which will be very handy in getting the latest market updates and latest strategies. And I'm also attaching a link to an old video of thinkschool that throws light on the evolution of the new age of insurance. So do have a look at all of these materials and let me know what you think about in the comment section. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.